Well, I'm talking with the Chief Minister here at the Villa Marina today because you've been doing the State of the Nation, and it was interesting. I mean, you've got a few things in there as usual. I mean, the Vickers Review, we haven't talked that for some time, but you brought it up today. That was always a major concern. That's come to
yes.
Where are we standing at that now?
That is continuing. It is not going as well as we'd initially anticipated.
Can you explain to people what it's about?
Well, it's about, it's technical in a way. It's about ring fencing offshore banks within the deposit compensation scheme in the UK. It was deemed, I think, for most banks beneficial that we be ring fenced within the UK scheme. It would appear that's not going to be the case now. So the banks, I think, are, while still talking to Westminster, and so is my government, it may well be that they will have to look at a different model.
That could be serious implications for yours?
It could lead to a major restructuring of the offshore banking industry. Now, whether that necessarily applies to the Isle of Man at this stage, we don't know.
Some would be nervous, some would fly. Would they go elsewhere?
It could
consolidate?
Be. It's quite likely that the business model of offshore banking, particularly as it affects the Crown dependencies, will change over the next few years. That could lead to job losses. It could potentially lead to job gains, but it's too early to say yet what that might be.
What percentage works in banks these days in the offshore now?
There are, I think, in the Isle of Man, 3,000 or 4,000 jobs.
So it's still a major employer?
It's a major employer, it's very important. And of course the business that flows from banking provides extra work to the professional services, etc. So we would be very, very concerned if we didn't get what we needed out of it. But those talks, I'm not being doom and gloom at this stage, those talks are still continuing.
But there's a UK election, you brought that up. Obviously, that clearly things all grind down to a halt, aren't they now, because no one knows who's going to be in power, so no one really wants to make any decisions. Is this what you're finding?
Yes, and the House of Commons goes into purdah towards the end of March. And purdah really is where the whole of government closes down. Nothing happens after that. So you've got a period until May where really very, very little is happening politically. You'll have the election at the beginning of May. The potential outcome of that election result is incredibly confusing at the moment. It's unlikely you're going to get one party with an outright majority, so there will be either a series of coalition potentials, or indeed smaller parties supporting a minority government.
But you're going to all these meetings, is it worth doing it?
It's absolutely vital. I've just come back from London now. I've just had a few days in London talking to politicians, talking to the business community, talking to bankers to try and gauge their feeling as what the outcome might be.
Okay. Melbourne is another thing you brought up. There's this big, bringing together of all these nations.
Yes.
And you were flagging that might also be a problem for the Isle of Man.
It's not Melbourne, it's Brisbane actually is the problem. The G20 meet in Brisbane in, I think, 2 to 3 weeks. And one of the issues which is on the agenda is an attempt, I think, for a collective response to public registers of beneficial ownership.
Which is big important for the Isle of Man.
It is very important. We've just continued or completed our consultation with the business community. That largely favours the status quo, which we do as well. But there may well be situations developing at the moment, and we've had meetings on this week with Westminster, where our position may have to change. But a lot is going to depend on what goes on in Brisbane, what goes on in the G20. Mr. Cameron in particular, personally, is the main driver behind this in the UK. Even George Osborne is not as committed to it, but it's very much a Cameron issue. He will be raising it in Brisbane. And frankly, at the moment, we have to wait and see just what the outcome might be.
Does he see that as an election sort of winner for him? Or
yes.
Which is problematical in itself then. So he's going to make more noise than he might.
We have now apparently developed a British brand, according to Mr. Cameron. We moved on from the British family. It's a British brand, and he wants to see the British brand taking the lead worldwide in bringing greater transparency to awareness of company ownership. Now, how far he gets with that is anyone's guess at this stage, but there will certainly be an attempt to raise it on the agenda.
How many times do we hear that the offshores are a conduit to bring money into the City of London, for instance? Will he be threatening that route, and he wants it to go directly in or something? Is this where we're going?
This potentially could damage London as much as it could the offshores. A public register of beneficial ownership of companies registered with the City of London, particularly when they are in a situation where they already are way behind, they're 10 years behind the Isle of Man in regulating company service providers, trust service providers. They have a long way to go to catch up with the Isle of Man. It could affect the Isle of Man, but conceivably it could affect the City of London more because they have more changes to make to come into line on that.
Okay, well, the full speech you made is going to be available on MTTV, which I think like 25 minutes is longer than you thought. We were planning on about 10, I understand, but obviously you had lots to say. So have a look at that because there's so much to take in. But confident for this year? You've got the budget coming up. You're saying you're ahead of where you should be?
I think people will find the budget moving in the right direction, at least. A huge amount of work has gone in behind the scenes. And I know people have been concerned about the charges we've brought in, some of the changes we've brought in. And it does look as if it's been piecemeal at times. But I hope next month when the budget comes along, people will finally be able to see what we've been able to try to achieve. It's not been a perfect approach, I fully accept that. But if we can get to the point next month where we've actually got our revenue account back in balance, that's a massive achievement for the Isle of Man. When you think it's only a few years ago, we lost £200 million, a third of our income. And in that time, with all the changes we brought in, we now have got it back in balance again. That gives us a chance then to start planning effectively for the future.